In 2009, a case filled with mystery and haunting obsessions shook public opinion. Everything began when the body of Fatima, a beautiful, talented, and promising young woman, was found in a tragic state. Fatima, a young woman from a modest middle-class family in India, was the envy of many when she entered into a luxurious marriage with Tariq, the second son of the powerful billionaire Basir. The wedding of Fatima and Tariq was a major event that attracted much attention, with her appearing radiant alongside her husband in a magnificent setting, giving an impression of the perfect life so many desired. But behind the doors of that opulent mansion, Fatima was not a beloved bride. Instead, she was a pawn in the terrible game of the Basir family. Hidden beneath the perfect facade of this powerful family was a cold plan where Fatima was turned into a tool to serve the family's ambitions, seen only as a means to produce an heir for their lineage. As the public slowly uncovered dark secrets, the painful question lingered: what truly happened to Fatima after she joined the Basir family? And why did a young woman full of potential have to meet such a tragic fate? Fatima, a smart, beautiful girl, was the pride of her family. Loved and sheltered in a wholesome environment, she held within her a yearning for a happy, simple, and sincere life. But all of that vanished the moment she met Tariq. Tariq, the heir to the Basir family, charming, talented, and set to inherit a dreamlike fortune. Tariq's allure overshadowed all worries, making Fatima's family believe she had found a fairy tale love. Tariq's perfection easily filled any fleeting doubts within Fatima's heart, as if the entire world was leading her into his arms. Their wedding was a grand event, an extravagant celebration that drew admiring glances from the most powerful elites. The sight of Fatima, radiant in a pristine white wedding gown beside Tariq amidst the shimmering surroundings and melodious music, left many in awe. But behind the doors of the Basir family mansion, Fatima's life veered in a different direction, a place where admiration was merely a veil concealing dark secrets, and where promises of love were just part of a ruthless plan that no one could have anticipated. Fatima was never truly accepted as a wife by the Basir family. She was a carefully chosen pawn in their sinister game, a cold instrument to serve their purpose of maintaining the family's reputation. Fatima's first suspicions arose soon after the wedding: the cold gaze from her mother-in-law, Tariq's indifference, and the secret conversations among family members. But every door remained closed, and every question she asked was met with silence or forced smiles. Fatima didn't know she had stepped into a place where any form of resistance would be crushed. Isolated in her own home, Fatima gradually realized she was merely a link in a plan to uphold the family line, a plan cleverly concealed beneath glamour and prestige. The only thing she didn't know was the depth of that scheme and the price she would have to pay to keep the Basir family's secret safe. Shortly after the wedding, Fatima realized the intense coldness in the home she once thought would be her lifelong refuge. The Basir family was not a warm nest. They were more like a fortified fortress where women had no value. There were no traces of any wives, sisters, or daughters. The women who had once set foot there had all disappeared, and Fatima was beginning to understand why. Initially, Tariq tried to maintain the appearance of affection. Lavish gifts and extravagant parties seemed to cover up a deeper truth. But soon, that facade began to fall. Tariq gradually revealed his indifference, and his eyes no longer held the same love they once did. They became cold, harsh. He was no longer the gentle husband Fatima had known. He was the heir of the Basir family, and she was merely a tool to serve his family's ambitions. Fatima was monitored down to every detail, from calls to messages. There was nothing the Basir family didn't have in their grip. Every decision of hers was tightly controlled. Silence enveloped the house like an invisible darkness, with only the cold, calculating gazes of husbands and brothers-in-law. To the Basir family, Fatima was not a woman but a reproductive tool, a baby machine and nothing more, brought into this house solely to produce an heir conditioned to preserve their noble lineage. With each passing day, Fatima felt as if she was living in a trap, a glamorous yet merciless cage. Stripped of her freedom, she began to understand that she had been deceived not only about love, but also placed in a position with no escape. just like the women who had come into this house before her, all of them forgotten ghosts within the cold walls of the Basir estate. Imprisoned within her own home, Fatima felt increasingly suffocated by the ominous secrets surrounding the Basir family. Everything seemed to crumble on a fateful night when she happened to pick up Tariq's phone, and in just a few brief moments, her entire life was turned upside down. In covert messages and intimate photos, Fatima discovered a horrifying truth: her husband, the man she had once loved, was in a secret same-sex relationship with a man named Salman. From those passionate messages, Fatima began to realize that this relationship was not temporary. It had been going on for years, and it seemed that the entire Basir family was well aware of it. The shock from this betrayal was just the beginning of a harsher reality. The Basir family, with its ambition to preserve its reputation and power, had carefully orchestrated everything. They forced Tariq to abandon his love for Salman and made him marry Fatima not for love, but simply so she could bear an heir for the Basir line. The sweet words and lavish gifts from Tariq now revealed their true nature. They were all part of a stage show to cover up the family's ruthless scheme. Fatima suddenly understood she had never been a wife, only a pawn in her in-law's hands, nothing more than a reproductive tool. Once the child was born, her position in this family would become meaningless, and she would be discarded, like a used object. The more she thought, the deeper her despair grew. She couldn't believe that the happy life she had once dreamed of was now just a lie, and all that remained was a feeling of imprisonment, being exploited in a plan with no escape. In a moment of panic, Fatima grabbed her phone and messaged Saira, her sister, the only person she could trust. She wrote hastily, revealing everything: the filthy secrets of the Basir family, Tariq's betrayal with Salman, and the immense fear she was feeling. Fatima knew that if she didn't speak up, she might never get another chance. But she also understood that by sending those messages, she had crossed a final boundary of safety, and now she might pay with her life. As the final message was sent, Fatima knew there was no turning back. The secret she had just exposed had placed her in grave danger, facing a family willing to do whatever it took to protect its reputation and power. In the stillness of the night, as Fatima tried to gather the final pieces of evidence to escape, she was unaware that her plan had already been uncovered. 3 figures entered the room, silent yet menacing: Tariq, the husband she had once loved, Salman, his secret lover, and Navid, Tariq's older brother. That night, Fatima faced a horrifying truth: not only betrayal but unimaginable brutality. With no hesitation or pretense left, the 3 men turned her into the victim of an uncontrollable fury. They cornered her, one by one, as if determined to inflict the deepest possible wounds on her, both physically and mentally. Fatima's screams were muffled in the cold, empty space, each second becoming a new torment, with every touch only intensifying her pain and humiliation. Fatima was not only tortured but also dehumanized, treated as though she were nothing more than a lifeless tool. Tariq, the husband she had once believed would protect her, was no longer a man but a brutal entity with a callous gaze. Salman and Navid, men she never suspected, also joined in with unimaginable cruelty, as if punishing her for daring to escape the cage that the Basir family had built. When it was all over, Fatima was left a hollow shell, her body and spirit shattered, imprisoned not only by the walls of this mansion but also by the fear and horror that now enveloped her. That night of terror would never see the light of day, as the Basir family, with their power and influence, would do everything to conceal their crimes, turning Fatima's memories into a haunting shadow that no one else would be allowed to know. The next day, Fatima disappeared without a trace. When her family tried to contact her, they only received a cold explanation from Basir, the powerful patriarch of the wealthy family, stating that Fatima had returned to the countryside for some rest. This indifferent explanation and Tariq's apathetic attitude as her husband only deepened her family's suspicions. The Basir family brushed off all questions with indifferent glances, as if Fatima's disappearance was just a trivial matter not worth mentioning. The concern of Fatima's family quickly turned to horror. A few days later, her body was found floating in the river, a sight that horrified those who discovered it. Fatima's body bore the marks of violence, deep bruises, signs of restraints, and multiple injuries indicating she had endured torture before being killed. The way her body was discarded coldly and carelessly clearly showed absolute ruthlessness. Fatima wasn't merely killed, she had been tormented to the extreme before being discarded like a worthless object. News of Fatima's death spread quickly, sparking a wave of public outrage. The Basir family, once known as one of the most powerful families in the region, possessing vast wealth and a broad network of influence, was now shrouded in suspicion. The public began to speculate about the life within this family mansion, about Basir's control and that of his sons Tariq, Fatima's husband, and Naveed, Tariq's cold-hearted older brother. Rumors circulated that the Basir family would go to any lengths to protect their reputation and power, even covering up the most horrific crimes. Fatima's death was no longer just her personal tragedy. It became a revealing piece in a grim picture of violence and concealed atrocities committed by the Basir family. To the public, this esteemed family was no longer a symbol of admiration but a powerful force willing to drag everyone into darkness just to protect their own secrets. Fatima's family, especially her sister Saira, could not contain their pain and fury over Fatima's tragic death. Losing her sister under such cruel circumstances, Saira not only had to face the grief but also the cold silence of the Basir family. They denied all responsibility, maintaining their perfect facade while using their power to silence any questions about the truth. Worse still, the local police seemed to deliberately avoid the case, conducting a cursory investigation as if Fatima's life and death were of no concern. But Saira did not back down. She vowed to seek justice for her sister, no matter how overwhelming the pressure from the Basir family. Knowing she could not rely on the police, Saira turned to social media, a tool that the Basir family could not easily manipulate. She began posting Fatima's story, sharing it line by line, post by post. From the images of Fatima's battered body to details of the sham marriage, Saira exposed every hidden angle the Basir family wanted to keep concealed. Each photo and every word she shared was filled with her pain and determination, a public accusation before the court of public opinion. Fatima's story spread rapidly, stirring outrage in the community. The dark details surrounding the Basir family were dissected, sparking a powerful wave of backlash across social media platforms. Hashtags demanding justice for Fatima appeared everywhere, with the public continuously sharing her story, turning it into a phenomenon the police could no longer ignore. Under relentless public pressure, the investigative agency was forced to reopen the case and began questioning witnesses, even knowing they were up against a family of immense influence. Saira, in her grief and fury, became the final voice for Fatima, a voice the Basir family could not easily silence. With resilience, she transformed her sister's story into a fire for justice that no power could extinguish. Under the weight of public scrutiny, the police could no longer overlook Fatima's complex case. Driven by Saira's determination, they started the investigation with evidence provided by Saira, Fatima's final messages, in which she despairingly revealed Tariq's secret same-sex relationship with Salman, and the ruthless plan devised by the Basir family to use her as a reproductive tool. Each line of those messages was a silent cry for help, revealing a secret that the powerful family had tried to bury. The police went further, reading through every page of Fatima's diary, where her pain and fear were exposed in each hastily written line. Fatima recorded the days she endured strict surveillance, being forbidden from contacting the outside world, isolated in the home she once believed was her sanctuary. Her diary entries were not only evidence but also a testament of her suffering, as if trying to say that she was never truly a wife but a victim trapped in her circumstances. When the police interrogated the servants of the Basir family, they initially hesitated but ultimately admitted that Fatima had been isolated and closely monitored. They recounted witnessing Fatima being restricted from any outside contact, living under the absolute control of her in-laws. The fragmented details from the servants began to piece together, painting a picture of the family's cruelty. Gradually, the messages, diary entries, and testimonies of the servants lifted the veil on the Basir family's calculated secrets. Each piece was a part of the truth they had once tried to hide, a plan that was no longer just a scheme but an unarguable sequence of crimes. The trial of the Basir family garnered major public attention as the atrocities Fatima endured were laid bare in detail. Basir, the head of the family, was sentenced to life imprisonment as the mastermind behind this ruthless scheme. He had forced his son, Tariq, to marry Fatima to preserve the family's reputation, viewing her as nothing more than a tool. This decision led many to believe that justice had been served, at least in part. However, public outrage quickly intensified when the verdicts for Tariq, Fatima's husband, and Salman, his same-sex lover, amounted to only 15 years in prison. Naveed, Tariq's older brother and a direct participant in the assault on Fatima, received a sentence of just 20 years. The courtroom buzzed with discontent as attendees felt that despite facing serious charges, the Basir family had somehow leveraged their power and wealth to mitigate the sentences for their members. The public believed that the Basir family had used their influence to tilt the scales of justice, turning the trial into a testament to the power of wealth rather than a true pursuit of justice. Fatima's case became more than the tragedy of one unfortunate individual. It emerged as a symbol in the fight against crimes concealed by power and money. Her unjust death sounded an alarm for society, highlighting the dangers women face when trapped and abused within powerful families, where influence can easily obscure any wrongdoing. Fatima's story transcended her alone and became a collective voice for countless women pushed into darkness, for victims forced into silent suffering. Justice did not come easily for Fatima, raising a troubling question: does the justice system truly stand by the victims, or is it still manipulated by the hands of the powerful? Her case exposed the injustice that numerous victims endure, a reminder that sometimes even justice can be distorted under the weight of money and hidden influence. The evidence, testimonies, and final verdict were only the surface of a dark story, reminding everyone that behind the polished walls of the Basir family, there might still be secrets that justice has yet to uncover.